past track and field season was a very big deal for athletes at both the high school and college level, because both of them had representatives that made Team USA for the Olympics. And I probably don't need to remind you that the most popular one out of all of them had to be Quincy Wilson in the 400 meter. You can say whatever you want to about it, but he is now an Olympian. In fact, he is an Olympic gold medalist, and he's also the youngest men's Olympian that America has ever had in track and field. So it does make a whole lot of sense that colleges, as soon as they are now able to have him come in for officials or go visit him, that is exactly what they're doing. If you've been paying attention online, you should have noticed that Texas A&M, Georgia, Texas Tech, Tennessee, and Florida are all schools that have had serious contact with him, either with an official visit or going to visit him at his home. And if you actually care what I have to say about it, it's the exact same list I would have projected he would have, even before they even told me the names on the list. From the year 2009 up until now, every single school on that list, except Tennessee, and I'm going to get to them in a moment, has won a national championship in outdoor track and field for Division I. Texas A&M won it 4 times, and Florida did it 7 times, including winning just this past season. Texas Tech did win indoors in 2024. They might have won more than that. I just got tired of Googling. And although Georgia only got 1 outdoors, that is surprising because they seem to bring in a whole bunch of top tier talent every single year. When it comes to Tennessee, in 2024 on the SCA Recruiting National List, they actually had, at least at the mid-season point last year, more athletes committed to them than anybody else from the top 300, which remember ranks all the track and field recruits across every event to help determine who is really the best. Yes, the Volunteers had more athletes committed than anybody else in the top 300. But people keep paying attention to Quincy Wilson because he also has already signed an NIL deal. He did that with New Balance because, well, when you break high school national records, it just kinda makes sense. After his Olympic performances, some people believe that he should go professional. I'm not here to say whether he should or he should not, at least not in this video. I'll probably tell you some other time, this is not that moment. But what I will say is as far as Quincy Wilson and running in college is concerned, especially once we realize he already had an NIL deal. And this video is about NIL. In case you haven't been paying attention, NIL was invented for Quincy Wilson and really nobody else, especially when it comes to track and field. And that brings us to the real problem, because the NIL situation for college track and field, specifically amongst high school recruits, is getting out of hand. That is not an exaggeration, and no, this video is not clickbait. People really have no idea what is going on out there, so allow me to fill you in. And yes, this is also one of those times where I know that something I might say is likely going to upset some people, and I'm willing to accept the consequences. Because when I hear that college coaches are now dealing with athletes over and over and over again, coming on official visits and asking, what are you gonna do for me with NIL? And the coaches are looking at each other like, they must not have got the memo. So I guess I'm gonna write it for them. So let's have a very real conversation about the state of NIL in track and field right now. Because I've gone over this topic before, but that was then. NIL has evolved a little bit from that moment into this one. But some things do not change, unfortunately. But if you're new here, I want to say thank you for even making it this far into the video. And I'm Coach Rob, the founder of SCARecruiting.com, where I rank the best track and field recruits across the entire nation. And if anything that I say actually connects with you, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe. But if I don't, just let me know in the comment section, because I try to read them all. So allow me to go over the facts the way that I understand them, because the truth about NIL is technically out there if you really want to see it. But the problem is, most people just see whatever it is they're actually hoping to, not what's really going on out there. As far as NIL is concerned, there's really 2 types of NIL that are out there. One is legitimate NIL deals for athletes whom are considered very high level. I'm talking near professional level already. They're just not competing as pros technically. And the other side of the coin essentially gives permission to amateur athletes to promote their name, image, and likeness. But that's only assuming that people actually see value in that name, image, and likeness. Which, if you're not in the first group, it's going to be highly limited when you try to do it the second way. At the college level, the best of the best athletes get NIL deals. Caitlin Tui had one running for Adidas, while she was still competing for the NC State Wolfpack, and after Graham Blanks of Harvard won the NCAA Cross Country Championship, the first time for Division I. He signed an NIL deal with New Balance. As far as he's concerned, he went on to become an Olympian later that year. And now, he just won the NCAA Championship again because he came back. Even sprinter Terrence Jones signed an NIL deal back in 2023 after he won the NCAA Championship indoor in the 60 the first time. That one was also with Adidas. If you're starting to see a trend here, the athletes who are winning national championships in D1, yeah, they're going to get some type of NIL money, whatever that means. If you're not directly involved in it, nobody really knows the details of those types of deals. But you have to keep in mind, in professional track and field, the most common contract handed out to athletes who quote-unquote go pro is a gear contract. At least from what I hear from the people who are inside of that world. There's incentives, and there's a whole bunch of opportunities to make money beyond that, but a lot of athletes are really just getting paid a little bit to wear the gear of a company. It could be Nike, it could be Adidas, or anybody else. But it doesn't mean that them wearing that logo means they're just getting a whole bunch of money on the back end. But NIL is still a relatively new phenomenon. And when you look at the high school level now, as well as the kids who just got to college, there's a much larger list now of people who have NIL deals. Some of the names off the top of my head are distant stars like Sadie Englehart from the class of 2025, as well as Allie Ince in the class of 2024. Not to mention Daniel Simmons, also running from the class of 2024. They all signed with New Balance, the same company that Quincy Wilson is now riding with. Even distant star Drew Griffith from the class of 2024 also signed with New Balance. So if you can kind of see where I'm going with this, if you're incredibly fast, probably break some records along the way, and win almost every race that you get into, New Balance is probably going to give you a phone call. I am aware they are not the only company to hand out NIL deals, but they do seem to hand out the most of them to the top athletes. But another international company called On, they've signed athletes like Lisa and Xenia Ray, who are in the class of 2026, as well as 2025, to go along with other top college athletes who have already won NCAA championships, at least for the most part from what I can tell of the list, and that's why they got those deals. The company Nike is where a lot of people's attention goes. From what I can tell, they only want the best of the best. Parker Valby was on their list. Well, I think she qualified as that at the college level, and Mia Brahe Pedersen signed with them out of her junior year of high school. And yes, she was hands down the best girls recruit in the class of 2024. It really wasn't close. She basically took a whole year off during her senior year and nobody could catch up. So if you are a high school or a college athlete who really wants to know what's going on with NIL, instead of asking your coach, you could just ask me. I will fill you in. If you really want to deal with a company that gives out, real athletic gear, and you want them to be happy about signing you to anything, you're probably going to have to be one of the best of the best at the high school level and beyond. And if you're running at the high school level, you basically got to be borderline Olympic level, like Quincy Wilson. I'm not going to waste much time talking about the other side of NIL. Colleges, especially in this new revenue sharing market, are feeling a whole lot more pressure to help athletes have opportunities to make money. Most of those opportunities are smaller companies that are going to partner primarily with power conferences. I said primarily, not exclusively, and they're going to offer deals that really aren't worth much of any money. Most of it is going to revolve around social media, trying to get athletes to essentially become their street team and post things online under the promise they might make some money. if at all. I'm willing to bet that very little money is actually exchanging hands with those deals, especially headed to track and field athletes. So if you really want NIL money, I wouldn't really go down that route, expecting those small little deals to pay off. If you don't have big companies that want to really sign you, NIL is more or less like a part-time job at best while you're in college. I highly doubt it's going to pay you much more than minimum wage while you're at it. So when it comes to Quincy Wilson taking college visits at this time in his career, if he chooses to go pro, that's fine, and he's going to have to deal with all of the challenges that come with being a professional track and field athlete, because these are not my words, these are Kyra Jefferson's words, so take it from her. Pro track and field right now is still not really a professional sport. It's a whole lot more like an amateur sport with professional athletes in it. Quincy Wilson appears to have that type of talent, so he can join that if he really wants to. I just don't really see the point on a personal level, because NIL is here, and it was invented for somebody like him. They really weren't checking for most of the track and field athletes when it came around. But people like him, who, I don't know, has a name, an image, and a likeness that America actually recognizes. He has real value to anyone, specifically with, I don't know, selling products, maybe? He's already on New Balance like most of the other top high school American athletes. But I'm sure there are at least some incentives in whatever deal structure he has. And if he chooses to renegotiate or sign a deal with just about anybody else, I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say he could get a deal with Nike if he really wanted to. So if you are a high school or a college track and field athlete and you really want to make NIL money, and you are not all the way in the front of the race in the biggest races of the year, I highly advise you make that your priority if you really want to get a deal. And if you really want to make more beyond that, I just hope that you're really good at TikTok dances, because that's about the only thing that I can see that might work out for you. And to be real with you, your college coach really can't help with that part. If you think you need help getting recruited, you are probably right. On SCArecruiting.com, you can get a ton of resources, like my free recruiting guide, detailed videos, online courses, and much more. And if nothing else, and you just really want to see more content like this, it is always greatly appreciated if you would please like and subscribe.